I love making fried rice, but as everybody knows, to make proper fried rice, you have to use pretty much day-old rice that's been in the refrigerator. And there's a lot of times that I decide I want to have some fried rice for dinner on a particular day, but I didn't happen to make any rice yesterday that I can now use to make it. So I found myself buying these pre-made little packages of rice and just keeping them in the fridge so I could whip up a batch of fried rice anytime I wanted, whether or not I had pre-made any rice in the days prior. But that's starting to seem a little silly considering this one little package of pre-made rice costs $2.50, where a bunch of bulk uncooked rice costs just a fraction of that. And add to that the fact that I have unspeakable amounts of bulk dried rice stored in this house as we speak. So sometime back, I realized that it made perfect sense to have a bunch of cooked white rice on hand stored in the freezer. Cooked rice freezes surprisingly well, and it works perfectly for making fried rice. So in this video, we're gonna make a big batch of white rice, and then I'm gonna show you exactly what I do to get it ready to package up and freeze it, and ultimately use to make some beautiful, delicious fried rice. And of course, the first step is going to be to cook up a big old batch of rice. So here I've got 2 quarts, that's 8 cups of uncooked white rice. I'm going to make this the quote old-fashioned way in a pan on the stove. To get started, I'm first going to rinse the rice. Since I mainly want to use this for fried rice, rinsing some of that starch off is going to help. If my end game was something like a creamy rice dish, I would probably skip this step. And here's a glass full of the water I used to rinse that rice, and you can see how milky and cloudy it is, just to give you an idea of what this rinsing step is actually doing. Now I've got all that rinsed rice in a medium-sized stock pot, and I'm going to add my fresh water. I'm going with a 1 to 1.5 ratio here, so for my 2 quarts of uncooked rice, I'll add 3 quarts of water. A lot of the time, you'll see people using a 2 to 1 ratio, that is twice as much water as rice. But I'm going 1.5 times the water because I want a firmer, slightly drier rice. I don't need big, squishy, waterlogged grains for this. Now I've got the pot on the stove over high heat, and I want to bring this water up to a boil. Once it's boiling, I'll reduce the heat to very low, and then sprinkle in a good pinch of kosher salt. Then I'm covering the pot with a properly fitting lid, and I'm setting my timer for 18 minutes. During this time, I will just leave it alone. I won't mess with the heat, and I definitely won't remove that lid. I need all that steam to stay inside so it can do its thing. After 18 minutes, my rice is cooked, and I'll fluff it a bit with a fork just to illustrate how perfectly cooked it is. No excess water in there, just nice, slightly sticky grains of properly cooked rice. I'm going to let this cool in the pot for just a little while I get the next step ready. And that next step is to get a couple of baking sheets and mist them with a light coating of cooking spray. These baking sheets are perfect because they've got these higher walls around the edge. Now to just start transferring that rice over to the sheets. I'll load up quite a bit of rice on each sheet, so I'll end up with a nice thick block of frozen rice when I'm all done. This 8-cup batch of rice fits perfectly on 2 baking sheets. Next is the flash freezing. I'll set the entire baking sheet in my freezer uncovered, and I'll leave it alone for 90 minutes. This step is going to evaporate a lot of the moisture from the rice. That's the key in using rice that's been in the fridge overnight if making fried rice. You need it to be partially dried out, and flash freezing it for a while will achieve the same thing as refrigerating overnight. And I want it to start getting hardened up, but not completely rock solid yet. And that's because after the 90 minutes, I'm going to flip that partially frozen sheet of rice onto my large cutting board and then cut it into portions that will fit nicely into my vacuum seal bags. Each of these portions is just about perfect for 2 side dish servings or 1 great big entree serving of fried rice. And now I'll stick that rice back into the freezer right there on the cutting board and let it go another 60 minutes. After that, these rice rectangles are quite solid and they're ready for vacuum sealing. So I'll just transfer each one into a bag, vacuum seal it with the FoodSaver, and it's ready to store in the freezer. Repeat the same with all my remaining rice blocks. And now I've got a ton of portioned out, pre-cooked rice that I can keep in the freezer for months or longer. And while I do need to thaw that rice block in the refrigerator for a few hours before using it, it's still way faster and massively more convenient than cooking up a serving of rice and refrigerating it overnight whenever I want to make fried rice. Speaking of which, what sort of video would this be if I didn't cook up a batch? So after the rice has been thawing in the fridge for just long enough that the grains aren't stuck together in one frozen block, I'll open up that bag and gently squeeze and break up any big rice clumps. No need to go crazy on this step, just giving the rice a quick once over is all it needs. The same thing I do when using those store-bought packs of cooked rice. With all my ingredients ready to go, I can start cooking up what I consider to be my go-to fried rice recipe. This is my it's a weeknight and I don't want to spend a lot of time thinking about what to make fried rice. Yellow onion, garlic, some fresh peppers if I have them on hand, and then that beautiful thawed rice. And of course, some green onion, followed by my favorite fried rice sauce, and a big spoonful of my homemade chili paste, because why not? And I know this part is slightly controversial in the fried rice world, but I add my egg last and mix it completely into the rice. This gives the whole dish a great texture and flavor, and I don't necessarily love the big chunks of overcooked scrambled eggs that I'd get if I put the egg in first, like many people do. Now I'm ready to serve it up. Finish with an extra drizzle of my stir-fry sauce and a few more of those green onions, and that's it. One of my favorite, relatively quick and easy weeknight recipes that is absolutely tasty and satisfying. And I know I blazed through the cooking of that fried rice in this video. Maybe I'll make a separate video sometime going more in depth on each step and ingredient, but this video here is about freezing rice, and I just wanted to show how nice of a final product this method can produce. Another super nice thing to do is clicking like and subscribe. It helps my channel reach more people, and it helps you stay up to date on all our latest stuff, including future food preservation videos. Thanks for watching, and until next time, this is Great Lakes Prepping.